We are in freshman English, and today we are working with Romeo and Juliet, Act 3, Scene 1 and following. We want to make a couple of just general observations before we get then to the actual performance of the play itself. Let's go ahead and put it in our notes. In 1 and 2 of Romeo and Juliet, we give most of our energy and time to the meeting of Romeo and Juliet and their marriage. Ironically, after Act 2, very little of Romeo and Juliet together. Very little. The play shifts in its focus to the ripple effects that are necessarily involved in understanding the opening scene of the play. Namely, the fights that are going to naturally occur between Capulet and Montague. So you should now have page 863 open in front of you. You should have your annotations out for Act 3, Scene 1. And we are ready now to begin to talk about this play as a tragedy. Now let's use Aristotle for a moment. Aristotle will say in his classic text, Poetics, that tragedy is defined as the protagonist beginning in an elevated position, king, prince, someone important, but ending at the end of the play destroyed. The classic example of this is, of course, Oedipus, who at the beginning of the play is the king of Thebes. And by the end of the play, well, it's been discovered that he killed his dad, married his mom, had 4 children by his mom, and he's blinded. And of course, his wife, Mother Jacusta, is dead. She's hung herself, right? And Oedipus is led off stage. He is a completely destroyed character. As the protagonist of the play, he is completely ruined, shamed in every way, and will be sent away from the city of Thebes to die in an adjacent town, Colonus, where he will die in the second of the 3 parts of the trilogy. In the play Romeo and Juliet, we're going to now see the play become a tragedy. And it will begin in 3:1. Think about the sense of timing. Romeo has just married. Happy or sad for him? Happy. Really happy. He's very excited about the fact that the following evening, that evening of that same day, he will get to enjoy Juliet physically by virtue of their marriage. So he's all excited about that. He runs, however, into Tybalt. Now, jot down in your notes, where did we see Romeo and Tybalt together last? We were at the party. And you'll remember that Tybalt's last lines in regards to that were what? Do you remember what he said? Next time. In modern language. Next time. Somebody's getting jacked next time. And it's going to be Romeo. So Romeo and Tybalt come together. But wait a minute. Jot down in your notes, what is ironic about the fact that Romeo and Tybalt come together in relationship to family? See, some freshman readers of this play miss this point right away. When Romeo marries Juliet, he marries into what family? Dude, he is now related to Tybalt. But wait a minute. Does Tybalt know anything about a marriage between Romeo and Juliet? No. Does Tybalt even know that Juliet knows Romeo? No. This is crucial to understanding the tragedy of the play. Tybalt will come up to Romeo and will curse him. He says nasties to him. He wants to fight him. He wants to embarrass him. Now let's point out, Tybalt does not necessarily want to kill Romeo. What he wants to do is embarrass him, make him look bad. Romeo wants to shake Tybalt's hand as a relative, a brother. Because that's what Tybalt is, he just doesn't know it. Tybalt and Romeo are now related by marriage. Technically then, Romeo can't fight Tybalt. It's against all the family rules, right? So Romeo will respond to Tybalt the way you would expect a family member to respond. Mercutio is having none of it. Mercutio does not know about Juliet, right? He assumes that Romeo is now all happy because maybe Rosaline responded to his text, right? Mercutio and Tybalt will begin to have a fight. Now let's talk about this fight, because we have to analyze it in regards to the performances that you will be watching on film. This fight and the sequence of that will follow it, you basically have two fights, is always central to the heart of the play. Notice what act we're in. We're right in the center of the play. You're going to have two sword fights. The first one will be between Mercutio and Tybalt. And it will actually be more about honor than anything. Okay, it's about honor. Mercutio is Romeo's pal. He cannot stomach the fact, A, that Tybalt would insult Romeo, and then Romeo would not give it right back to him. Romeo doesn't insult him. Instead, he says these kind of general things about, if you understood who I am, you would love me differently, stuff like that. And of course, Tybalt's like, dude, just get out of my face. You're so much of a wimp. And that's what it comes down to, the question of, let's write it in our notes, the question of manhood. You got boys challenging each other, men, young men, challenging each other over the whole issue of whether they're actually men or not. Mercutio sees this whole thing. He's like, there ain't no way I'm letting Tybalt get by with this. Mercutio fights kind of in Romeo's defense. And it looks like a normal back and forth, boys will be boys kind of sword play. Romeo gets worried and he steps in to break it up. In the process of breaking up the fight, Tybalt, key for your notes, accidentally wounds Mercutio. Romeo gets in the way. Tybalt will wound Mercutio under the arm. But the human body is a strange organ. It can take serious amounts of slam, slam, slam. Like in football games or wrestling, you can pound on a body. You can put a guy on the back, for example, of a serious bull, and he can stay on there and take all kinds of pounding. But a little tiny pinprick in the wrong part of the body, namely to the lungs, you can be dead in a matter of minutes. It's the strangest thing. The human body is a strange organ. And sure enough, this puncture wound looks like nothing, but it will be enough. And immediately Mercutio knows that he's dead. But because Mercutio is a joker, it appears like he's making jokes, as he, right to the end of his life, will say, a curse upon both your houses. It has made worms meat of me. Everyone thinks he's joking. It's like, ha ha ha. Mercutio is always joking, like he's pretending like he's been wounded. Tybalt will leave, and then it will be discovered Mercutio is dead. Now it's at this point Romeo is stuck. Yes, he is related to Tybalt now by marriage. But Mercutio is his pal. And to some degree, Mercutio is dead because of Romeo. In fact, Mercutio will ask him, why did you come between us? And Romeo will say, I thought only for the best. In other words, it was for a good thing. I was trying to separate you. The irony of all ironies is Romeo's kind of responsible for Tybalt's killing of Mercutio, for Mercutio's death. Now Romeo has a serious question. What does he do? His response is made in a moment of rage. He moves from being a lover to being a fighter. He hunts down Tybalt. He kills Tybalt. In the moment of killing Tybalt, Romeo will speak really important words that we have to analyze once we hear them. What does it mean to say, I am fortune's slave? Why does he say that? In a moment, Romeo realizes that his life is forever destroyed. Okay? And it's in this moment, quite frankly, it's in the moment when Romeo kills Tybalt that this play becomes a tragedy. There is no other way out. Okay? Elizabethan audiences get it. It is a tragedy. It will remain a tragedy. There is no hopeful ending. There are modern audiences of this play. For example, believe it or not, students who went and watched for example, a Leonardo DiCaprio version of the play, who are actually surprised by the ending of the play where both Romeo and Juliet are dead. Now, we already know that they're going to die from the opening lines of the prologue, correct? But the reason we really know that this thing can't end pretty is because Romeo ends up taking the life of Tybalt. Let's just say it out loud. In the same day that Romeo becomes a husband, he becomes a murderer. He's killed a man, and he's married his woman. All in a matter of minutes, literally minutes, right? Hours at best, right? This will, of course, then lead to the final denouement, the downcline of the play, the ending tragedy of the play. Why? Because the prince has got to show up. And what did the prince say the last time this foolishness happened? Heads will roll. Somebody's going to get killed. The fact that Romeo has killed Tybalt requires that the prince have an action. His action is of one of two kinds. One, he either kills Romeo, executes him. Two, he banishes Romeo. What does banishment mean? You are sent from the city and you're never allowed to return. What city are we in?
Verona.
What city is he banished to? Mantua is the name. It's an adjacent town. It would be like you're being exiled, banished from the town of Orleans and being sent to Grable. You can live that close to your town, but you are never ever allowed to come back to the town of Orleans. How is that handled? All of these Italian cities have walls around them. So unlike Orleans, where you just drive into the town, Italian cities have walls around them, right? Where you have gates and very few gates. And the only way in or out is to show that you have right of passage. Romeo would be obligated to never return to the city of Verona. Students often will forget this. When he's banished from his girl, but Friar Lawrence and the nurse, and Juliet of course, are the only ones that know about this banishment thing. Nobody else understands that that's a big dog deal. Why is being banished from Verona a big deal for the rest of everybody? He's got to leave his family. He'll never get to see his ma, his dad again in the city of Verona. Now they can leave Verona and go see him. But to come back to the city of Verona will mean death. Of course, for Romeo, the only thing he's thinking about is his girl, right? So, and then we're going to obviously have to have this supposed resolution, which will ultimately end in their mutual deaths. All right, let's take a look now. I'm in 3.1. That's enough of an introduction. We are working on page 863. And of course, this becomes the high moment of the play in terms of energy. We're going to look at two film versions of this play. The first we'll look at is by a famous Italian director named Zeffirelli, who will decide this scene deserves almost 20 plus minutes of film footage, which is why other parts of the play have to be edited out for him. And the fight scene in the Zeffirelli version is in fact oftentimes argued as one of the better fight scenes of all time. In fact, they used live blades, and somebody was actually really wounded in the fight scene itself. It becomes a real fight scene, okay? In the DiCaprio film, we don't have swords, we have guns, because we're set in Los Angeles, where they are in gangs where they are shooting pistols at each other. You, for example, will see a picture of that one from the 862 page of your hymnal. Here, the fight scene is handled differently, but it still is the pivotal moment where we're fighting, but we're not fighting with swords. So obviously the question is, how exactly are you going to handle the fight scene? Is it going to happen with bullets? And of course, if you're messing around with guns, usually bullets have a tendency to find human bodies, right? So we'll get into that one. We're going to study the classic version first, Zeffirelli later, and then we'll come back to look at the Leonardo DiCaprio version. All right, let's go ahead and go ahead.
Who is this in this picture really fast?
Who, as in, you're talking about the character? This is Mercutio in the picture on 862, Romeo's pal. In gang culture, you don't draw your own weapon; it's drawn for you by your second, who then will appropriate the fair amount of bullets, etc., etc. All right, here we go. We are in 863, Act 3, Scene 1. Let's break our hearts together. Romeo, of course, goes from being at the height of joy to the pits of depression. He's going to do it all in one scene. This is a pretty remarkable scene for Shakespeare. Let's take a look at it. Benvolio and Mercutio, back and forth.
I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. The day is hot, the captain is abroad, and if we meet, we shall not stay to brawl. But now these hot days is the mad blood stirring.
Thou art like one of those fellows that when he enters the confines of a tavern, claps me his sword on the table and says, God send me no need of thee, and by the operation of the second cup, draws him on the draw when indeed there is no need.
Am I like such a fellow?
Oh, come, now I'm as hot a jack in my mood as any innocent here, that's soon moved to be moody, and as soon moody to be moved.
And what two?
There were two such, we should have none shortly, for one would kill the other. Thou? Why, thou wilt quarrel with a man that hath a hair more or a hair less in his beard than thou hast. I will quarrel with a man for cracking nuts, having no other reason but because thou hast hazel eyes. Now what eye but such an eye would spy out such a quarrel?
Now,
By head.
the point here is, Mercutio is saying to Benvolio that you're always wanting to start fights. Of course, what's ironic about this? What do we actually know about Benvolio? He's the peacemaker. Notice the opening lines of the act. Dude, it's hot. We know that Tybalt's about. Let's just get out of here and not have a problem. Mercutio loves a fight. He is the Achillean character. He is the guy that likes fighting. But he will ironically say about Benvolio, you're the guy that walks into a tavern, takes out your sword, lays it on the table and says, I hope I don't have any need of my sword, which is code language for, I hope I can jack somebody. So Mercutio is saying to Benvolio basically what he is, and ultimately setting up what we know is about to happen, right?
As an egg is full of wheat, and yet thy head hath been beaten as addle as an egg for quarrelling. Thou hast quarrelled with a man for coughing in the street, because he hath wakened thy dog that hath lain asleep in a sound. Didst thou not fall out with the tailor for wearing his new doublet before Easter? With another for tying his new shoes with old ribbon? And yet thou wilt tutor me from quarrelling?
And I was so apt to quarrel as thou on any matter would buy the fee simple of my life for an hour and a quarter.
Oh, the fee simple, oh, simple!
By my head, here comes the Capulets.
By my heel, I dare not. Follow me close, for I will speak to them.
Gentlemen, good day. A word with one of you.
And I should point out, the language here, and I need more focus out of all of you. I want you to really be reading these words as we work through this. Again, I'm trying to teach you how to read, and the best way to do that is for you to actually read these words. Don't just listen. You've got interesting language going on here. Shakespeare's playing a nasty game where he'll have double entendre meaning, double meaning, and sometimes even triple meanings here. Some of this language is actually sexual. And it's also very lowbrow. It's very kind of gutter. It's boys will be boys kind of language. Mercutio will say things he knows will upset Tybalt. And in the process, Tybalt is ready to go face to face with Mercutio when all of a sudden Romeo shows up. Romeo's all happy and everything. And of course, it's going to lead to Romeo's like, dude, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not interested in fighting. I just got married. Of course, he can't say that out loud.
Couple it with something, make it a word and a blow.
You shall find me apt enough to that, sir, and you will give me occasion.
Could you not take some occasion without giving?
Mercutio, thou consortst with Romeo.
Consort? What dost thou make us minstrels? And I make minstrels of us look to hear nothing but discords. Here's my fiddlestick. Here's that shall make you dance. Zoons, consort.
Talk here in the public court, men either withdraw to some private place or reason coldly of your grievances, or else depart. Here all eyes gaze on us.
Men's eyes were made to look and let them gaze. I will not budge for no man's blame.
Well, peace be with you, sir. Here comes my man. But I'll be hanged, sir, if you wear your livery.
Marry, go before to field, he'll be your follower. Your worship in that sense may call him mad.
Romeo, the love I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain.
Tybalt, the reason that I have to love thee doth much excuse the appertaining rage to such a greeting. Villain, I am none. Therefore farewell, I see thou know'st me not.
Boy, this shall not excuse the injuries that thou hast done me. Therefore turn and draw.
To protest I never injured thee, but love thee better than thou canst devise, till thou shalt know the reason of my love. And so, good Capulet, whose name I tender as dearly as mine own, be satisfied.
God, dishonorable, vile submission, Allah Stoccata carries it away. Tybalt, you rat catcher, will you walk?
What wouldst thou have with me?
Good king of cats, nothing but one of your 9 lives that I mean to make bold withal, and as you shall use me hereafter driving the rest of the east. Will you pluck your sword out of his pilcher by the ear? Make haste, lest mine be about your ears and in the arm.
I am for you, gentle Mercutio. Put thy rapier out.
Come, sir, your passado.
Go, Benvolio, beat down their weapons. Gentlemen, for shame, for various outrages. Tybalt, Mercutio, the prince expressly has forbid these banding in morality. Tell Tybalt, good Mercutio.
Mercutio injured.
I'm hurt.
And then he realizes it. He's not only hurt, he's wounded.
Playing of both the houses, I'm sped.
Well, has he gone and have nothing? Aye, scratch. Scratch. Man, it is a lump. Where is my page?
Go, then, fetch a surgeon who carries man, the hurt cannot be much.
No, it is not.
Let's point out for your notes, Romeo's always getting it wrong. I mean, in the entire play, he's always getting it wrong. So, like, he'll say something like this to his pal. Dude, it can't be that bad. I mean, you're fine. Of course, the reality is, yeah, no. Every time Romeo says everything's going to be great, Almost always it turns out the opposite, right? Everything's not great at all. Watch this.
The church door, but 'tis enough 'twill serve. Ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. And peppered I wanted for this world. A plague of both your houses. Soon's a dog, a rat, a mouse, a cat, a scatterman, a death, a braggart, a rogue, a villain that fights by the book of arithmetic. Why the devil came you between us that was hurt under your arm?
I thought all for the best.
There it is, right?
Some house been Romeo, I shall think. A plague of both your houses, they have made worms meat of me. I have eaten soundly too. Your houses.
This gentleman, the prince, is near a lie. My very friend hath got this mortal hurt in my behalf. My reputation stained with Tybalt's slander, Tybalt that an hour hath been my cousin. O sweet Juliet, thy beauty hath made me effeminate, and in my temper softened valor's steel.
It's an interesting line. What does it mean? He says, "Thy beauty hath made me effeminate."
It's like her beauty's making it
The very
Weak, yeah. In other words, I'm behaving like a woman here instead of what I should have been behaving like a man all along. Also uses the R word. What's the R word?
Foul.
The R word.
Reputation.
Yeah, reputation. Now, reputation, what does he mean by that? This whole thing of reputation. What does he mean by that? The way people think about him, look at him, has everything to do with what he does or does not do. In other words, let's just say this out loud. Romeo feels kind of like now he's stuck. He's got to do something. It's not like he can just walk away now and go, oh, well, my best friend just got jacked by Tybalt. I guess I just... Part of the problem is Tybalt was killed because of Romeo. Got in the way, right? Okay. And because that, now Romeo has to respond. Let's take a look at the response.
Oh, Mercutio is dead. That gallant spirit of a spy in the clouds, which too untimely here did scorn the earth.
Look at what he says, Romeo.
This day's black fate on more days doth depend. This but begins, the woe others must end.
Here comes the furious Tybalt back again.
He come in triumph, a Mercutio slain. Away to heaven respected lenity and fire and fury be my conduct now. Now, Tybalt, take the villain back again that late thou gavest me. For Mercutio's soul is but a little way above our heads, staying for thine to keep him company. Either thou or I or both must go with him. Thou, wretched boy, that didst consort him here, shout with him hence. This shall determine that.
Kills him.
Away. Begone. The citizens are up and Tybalt slain. Stand not amazed, the prince will to thee death with our taken his begone away.
Oh, I am fortune's fool.
What dost thou say?
Now that's interesting. Let's put it in your notes. He says, what is it that he says after he kills Tybalt? I am fortune's fool. Now what exactly does that mean? I mean, your sidebar says plaything.
He likes to mess with fortune.
Fortune
likes
means
to
what?
mess with him.
What is fortune?
Your destiny.
Destiny, right. This notion, now we're back to this issue of star-crossed lovers all over again, right? In other words, there's a certain kind of destiny, and he says, I'm kind of jacked now. There's no way, Romeo realizes it, there's no way now for him to be saved. He is stuck, right? All right, here we go.
Which way ran he that killed Mercutio? Tybalt, that murderer, which way ran he? Then that Tybalt. Up, sir, go with me. I charge thee in the prince's name, obey. Where are the final beginners of this play?
Notice it's Benvolio who will
I will discover
report.
all the unlucky manage of this fatal brawl.
Notice, unlucky.
Then lies the man slain by young Romeo, that slew thy kinsman brave Mercutio.
Tybalt, my cousin, oh, my brother's child, oh, prince, oh, cousin, husband, oh, the blood is spilled of my dear kinsman. Prince, as thou art true, for blood of ours shed blood of Montague.
What does she say? Put it in your own words. What's she say?
My cousin, my nephew was just slain by Montague.
Blood for blood, meaning what?
Eye for an eye.
There, you got it. This is simple justice now. She says, Romeo killed Tybalt. Somebody's got to get jacked. Notice it's Benvolio who will step in and try to explain why Romeo had some reason to kill Tybalt. Watch how he does
The
this.
monster was already slain.
Yeah, but
You got it. You got it. Now, of course, notice who said this about Tybalt needing to be avenged. Who said that? Lady Capulet, right? We're going to get the mamas involved here in a second. Of course, they're just going to escalate the emotion involved here. Why would an audience be looking at the prince through a lot of this?
Because he has all
He's
the
ultimately, the prince is the one who's going to have to decide what happens, right, to Romeo.
Benvolio, who began this bloody fray?
Tybalt here slain, whom Romeo's hand did slay. Romeo that spake him fair, bid me think how nice the quarrel was, and urged with all your high displeasure. All this uttered with gentle breath, calm look, knees humbly bowed, could not take truce with the unruly spleen of Tybalt. Death to peace! But that he tilts with piercing steel at bold Mercutio's breast, who all is hot, turns deadly point to point, and with a martial scorn, with one hand beats cold death aside, and with the other sends it back to Tybalt, whose dexterity retorts it. Romeo, he cries aloud, hold, friends, friends, part! And swifter than his tongue, his agile arm beats down their fatal point, and picks the rushes underneath his arm. An envious thrust from Tybalt hit the light of stout Mercutio, and then Tybalt fled, but by and by comes back to Romeo, who had but newly entertained revenge. And to it they go like lightning, for ere eye could draw to part them, was stout Tybalt slain. And as he fell, did Romeo turn and fly. This is the truth, or let Benvolio die.
He is a kinsman to the Montague, affection makes it false. He speaks not true. Some 20 of them fought in this black strife, and all those 20 could but kill one life. I beg for justice, which thou, prince, must give. Romeo slew Tybalt. Romeo must not live.
Romeo slew him. He slew Mercutio. Who now the price of his dear blood doth owe?
Not Romeo, Prince. He was Mercutio's friend. His fault concludes but what the law should end, the life of Tybalt.
And for that offense, immediately we do exile him hence. I have an interest in your hate's proceeding. My blood for your rude brawls doth lie a bleeding. But I'll amerce you with so strong a fine that you shall all repent this loss of mine.
It seems, you can read your sidebar, but apparently Mercutio is somehow related to the prince, right? So all of a sudden now this is getting personal for the prince.
Pleading and excuses, no tears, no prayers shall purchase out abuses, therefore use none. Let Romeo hence in haste, else when he's found, that hour is his last. Bear hence this body and attend our will. Mercy but murders, pardoning those that kill.
It's interesting, put it in your notes. Do you find it at all interesting that Juliet's daddy doesn't talk in all of this? It's Juliet's mom who is the one who's so fired up about the death of Tybalt. Did you notice this? And she wants vengeance. She wants justice vis-a-vis vengeance, right? In other words, there's not enough people dead for the death of Tybalt. Tybalt's death has to be answered for. The answering from the prince is banishment, exile, and Romeo will not be allowed to ever return to Verona. Now to scene 2. Shakespeare is going to play some kind of interesting game with us, okay? How much time do I have? I got it.
5 minutes.
Thank you for the heads up. So let's talk through it real quickly. Shakespeare is going to have Juliet in the bedroom waiting for Romeo. Okay, so let's talk it through now. This is going to be the scene where two things happen. One, Juliet is anticipating her husband coming to her bedroom for their quote-unquote wedding night. She is all excited about this fact that she will sleep with her new-made husband. The nurse shows up. The nurse, I told you, every time this happens, the nurse shows up. She is very emotional. She starts saying, he is dead, and immediately Juliet assumes what? Yeah, we know that, of course, the nurse is talking about Tybalt is dead, right? Okay, so Juliet, in this scene, will go from the height of excitement to the depths of depression, and it's going to happen like almost instantaneously, right?
So Romeo did that same thing in the
Of course, good. We're going to see some mirroring that starts to happen, right? Where you go from the heights of excitement to the pits of depression and in between, of course. All right, here we go. Follow these lines. Juliet, all excited about the fact she gets to sleep with her guy.
Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds, towards Phoebus' lodging. Such a wagoner's phaeton would whip you to the west and bring in cloudy night immediately.
In other words,
Spread thy
night, hurry up and get here.
Love performing night, that runaways' eyes may wink and Romeo leap to these arms untalked of and unseen. Lovers can teach to their amorous rites by their own beauties, or if love be blind, at best agrees with night. Come, civil night, thou sober-suited matron all in black, and learn me how to lose a winning match played for a pair of stainless maidenhoods. Put my unmanned blood fainting in my cheeks with thy black mantle, till strange love grow bold, think true love needed simple modesty. Come night, come Romeo, come thou day and night. For thou wilt lie upon the wings of night, whiter than new snow on a raven's back. Come, gentle night, come loving black-browed night, give me my Romeo, and when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun. Oh, I have bought the mansion of a love but not possessed it, and though I am sold, not yet enjoyed. So tedious is this day as is the night before some festival to an impatient child that hath new robes but may not wear them.
Now, what's interesting is she uses the word child. She says, I'm like an impatient child, like waiting. For example, I've got my new clothes, and I haven't been able to wear them yet. She calls herself a child. In many ways, of course, she is a kid, right? The nurse